And he said to them, "Why do you raise such questions in your hearts? Which is easier, to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or to say, stand up and take your mat and walk? But so that you may know the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins," he said to the paralytic, "I say to you, stand up, take your mat, and go to your home." Patience in adversity. Do we pursue happiness? Do we look for where we have good luck in our happenstance? Because really what you're looking for is those passive moments that things go your way or our way. Things are convenient for us. Or do we look to build community? We find a purpose of mission. And then we persevere when it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And then even when it seems like it's about to happen, do we wait and have patience when again it looks like there's something that's not about to happen? Because here's how this story ends. In verse 12. "And he stood up and immediately took the mat and went out before all of them, so that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, 'We have never seen anything like this.'" And you need to understand, when it uses that simple phrase, "they glorified God," that means they worshiped. I don't necessarily mean in terms of a organized corporate service like we're having here this morning. That means worship broke out. Spontaneous worship. Spontaneous praise. What happens when we find a purpose of mission? What happens when we persevere through obstacles? What happens when we're patient in adversity? Those are all actions we take. Somewhere, somehow, the reaction from all the people will be praise. I wanted to share with you an example of someplace I saw very much a form of, after a lot of purpose of mission, persistence and patience, some praise. And Jeff, you can put the first picture up. A couple years ago, I had a chance to, I worked overseas out of Nairobi, Kenya for a couple of months. I took the opportunity, I got acquainted and associated with a missionary couple over there. They run an organization called Africa Exchange. And I went to church with them on the weekends and became very interested in what their mission activities were, which were basically going in some of the far reaches in the rural areas way outside all over Kenya and doing a lot of projects that were helping both children and villages do many different things. So this place is down in the Rift Valley, about 2 hours outside of Nairobi. And it worked out. I was hoping to have an opportunity to go with him on one of his mission projects or ministry projects. And it did. This ride that we took, and this is just taken from the viewpoint of looking out away from where I'm about to tell you about, down in the Rift Valley. And not much of anything there. And literally a good 2 hours or more we drove. At least the last hour of it, it wasn't a road. It was just trying to find where the last set of tire prints were from whenever the last vehicle was that made its way out there to this village. And this is Maasai village that we went to. And we went and looked at Ararat Preparatory School. And Jeff, you can go to the next picture. This is the school itself. It serves a couple of different Maasai villages nearby. It's not very large. Children from about ages 4 to middle school age, probably about 50, 70, something like that total, use the school. It's a Christian school. It's also looking to seek to include the Maasai cultural ways as well, so they're not lost. John, who we met, there's kind of the principal, the director, John Kinselel. He's the very much strong Christian. And while we were there was something, and hold off just a second, Jeff. There was something very much he wanted to show us. The main reason we were there, Sam Harrell, he's the missionary that with Africa Exchange. He was checking a couple things like he does. He was checking a beehive they were trying to get going for honey production, see if they could work for that village. And he brought mosquito nets, and we got those delivered. The main reason we were there, and we were there all day in the hot sun on that very hard ground. You can't see it, but from the angle of where the picture was taken, that's their playground, and there's really nothing there. There was an old broken swing set that amounted to 2 poles and a cross beam out of wood. And we brought materials, and some were already there, and we built a brand new, much larger, nicer swing set while we were there for the kids. And that basically constituted the entire playground for the school. But something important to John that he wanted to show us there while we were there, something had finished, and it had been a while since Sam had been there as well. He wanted to show us his new school library. Jeff, you can go to the next picture. That is traditional materials used by the Messiah in some construction of some of their villages. It's about as small as it looks. I was, as far as the library, I think I drove by. I had to have Jordan. I've got a meeting on OSU campus this week, and had Jordy show me exactly where Thompson Library was. And I think about 1,000 of those could probably fit in the Thompson Library in Ohio State. But he was so proud and pleased with this. And then last picture, Jeff, you would go to that one. This is John. That's the inside of the library. And yes, if it looks like the shelves are built out of sticks and wood, they are. And those are the materials there for it. And I don't know how well you can see his face, but let me tell you, that's pure joy. It's not just him smiling for the picture. And I had a sense of this was not about him looking at an opportunity to say, the library's okay. I wish I could have been better. I wish I had more money. I wish it could have been different somehow. Wish this, wish that. Bad luck, bad happenstance. There was such a joy for John on this library. And I think this verse from Paul in Philippians 4, starting with verse 11, goes along with that. For I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well-fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. As we kind of look towards closing here, I just want to let you know these points, simple points I'm just trying to make, looking at this group of people in this story. One, they committed to a purpose. They were persistent in the obstacles. They were patient in adversity. And the end result was the praise that came, spontaneous praise, because of what God brought about. There are many ways we can apply that. You can go to your job tomorrow, and in how you're trying to continue to be discipled, you may find ways to apply that. You might find ways that you get to, and instead of trying to pursue your own happiness, you may find a point that you need to start either applying persistence or patience. You may not even have adopted maybe a purpose in terms of what God's called you to do yet. When you go back to school tomorrow, be it to college or to high school or junior high, same thing. When you're talking with your neighbors this week over something and you're interacting with them, or even just looking at them and thinking about, I've always meant to do, fill in the blank. What is your purpose? Or are we more about our own pursuit of happiness? But the biggest thing I want to leave for you, example of implying this, is for this church, and particularly the church members here of this church. As we're looking at a huge transition, we've already started in some ways. You can see the organ's gone. It's already been put into storage. We'll only be here for another month or two or so. We'll spend a good 13 months, that's what I'm hearing, give or take, between this building and a new building. Then we'll move into a new building, but it's like anything else. You ever bought a new car and had problems? Mm-hmm. My point is, during this whole process, church, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us, individually and in small groups, to pursue our own happiness. To feel like, well, that's bad luck. I don't like that happenstance. I wish that was different. I don't want it that way. But we can be united in a purpose of mission. We can understand we will need to be persistent. And I would say there's already been much persistence in some ways in this project. And similarly, there's already been much patience. But we can decide right now we're going to have to even be more patient in getting through this transition. And not pursuing our individual happiness over this, but committing to the purpose of mission. So that when we do get through this, hopefully, there will be that spontaneous praise and worship with whatever God has given us. Whether it's to our pursuit of happiness or not. I want to close with this as we're going to have the Lord's Supper, and Tracy's going to come up here and lead that in just a minute. I want to, and then after we're going to have the response song, and we're going to sing that song still, just a small portion of it again. But I want to reference some of those lyrics in terms of what we're talking about when we get to that. I love that song because some of the lyrics there in the refrain say something to the effect of when the ocean rises and storms come, the thunder roars. I will soar with you over the storms. You are king of the flood. I love that last phrase in particular because it doesn't say, you'll make sure, God, there are no floods. It says, you're king over the flood. That's very important for us to understand. God never promised us utopia. Never promised us this wonderful pursuit of happiness. But we've got to fly together. He's got to be king together over that flood. And if you're not sure if you're there, if we're not sure as small groups or individuals or as families, as a whole church, we're there, the last part of that refrain says, be still and know that I am God. So when we get to the response time today, and when we start taking this bread and cup, be still and know that He is God. Try to find out whether or not, do we have the purpose of mission? Are we being persistent? Are we being patient? Patient enough to wait for that spontaneous praise.